Hey, how you guys doing? It's Producer from Brothers Comics. Welcome to our House of the Dragons recap show as we are going episode by episode through season two. It's again Skeleton Crew tonight. The Grand Maester not with us again, but he'll be back here and with us in spirit later in the season. It's me and Lady Dragonstone again. Lady Dragonstone, say what's up.
Hey, hey, kids. We're back with we're back. We're here, but seething.
Yeah, but yeah, we're doing this like we did last week as well, recording, a couple of hours before the new episode, getting a chance to go over season two, episode three, The Burning Mill. Um,
Hmm.
and you've been chomping at the bit to record this all week. We're just really getting a chance, to do it. You want to save your vitriol for each individual section, or do you have a
Yeah.
preamble of anger
Do I
to
have a
go through?
preamble of anger? Oh God. I yeah. Let's wait till I'll when the sections come. I'll do it.
Okay. Yeah, a weird episode, and I would probably say maybe the weakest of the three
When I
thus far. Just out of I don't know, it felt like a filler episode, and I've been consistent on this as we've been going through that the pacing is just off. For me, I read something today that in the stories of the book, whatever, they would be on page like 42, and we're almost halfway through the season of an
I agree.
182-page book. So like and I guess this episode was a lot of like, well, that wasn't in the book, makeup stuff, including our Pentelet scene at the end, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So let's jump off. It's war, everybody. It's the first battle of the war, the first real battle. I told you, I was like, oh, from Hatfield and McCoy's stuff, and then you were like, what? But you got to be a certain age to understand Hatfields and
Mm,
McCoy's.
yeah.
So yeah, so it's House Bracken versus House Blackwood,
Hmm.
and they arguing over a disputed patch of land essentially, and but beyond the land part, it goes into allegedly the roots of the war. Well, you declared for the traitorous king and the usurper, and well, your freaking queen's a baby killer. And instead of giving us this epic battle that lasts a couple of, I don't know, minutes, seconds, or whatever, it starts off between these rednecks, and you get a cut
Essentially.
scene and you see the end of the battle with a bunch of people dead, like a bunch of people dead, that happened here. So yeah, both houses is it. And this is the coming war. What are your thoughts on the opening scene here with the Brackens and the Blackwoods?
I
Blackwoods for Team Black, by the way, naturally.
of course. I Brackens and the Blackwoods have been beefing for centuries. I cannot necessarily tell you why. Like they say it in the show, like the answer is lost in time. The idea is that their neighbor is fighting over. I believe the idea is their neighbor is fighting because they have the exact same land. It's just like divided. It's like the Florida
Mm-hmm.
Georgia border or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've just been fighting over that for centuries. But to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know. It was a weird way to start the episode. It was a weird. The Blackwoods become a very important part of it eventually,
Mm-hmm.
and they thought they were showing like with the I think it was Davos Blackwood. We thought they were showing a very important character, but that would eventually become important like at the last bits before they end the freaking show.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
think it was a weird way to open with these
Yeah.
two people that we've never. I mean, you saw Blackwood's like in the scene where Rhaenyra's in Dragonstone trying to like where Viserys is like making her go on like her marriage tour to find a husband.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the little kid that kills the guy. That's the Brackens and the Blackwoods.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it's a weird way to open it because they don't become important for a while.
Yeah, well, as I said, last episode, Randeroses, these people that just kind of random. It's gonna major one's going to come up here later in this episode, but I was like, oh, okay. Again, taking out the differences between this show and Game of Thrones, like this would have given us a whole battle where we saw people get beheaded and eyes popped out and all of that. And they're just like, no, yeah, this is what happened. And you get like this one kind of cutaway shot at the end of the battle. And again, I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, but you can definitely tell the difference in the production of both shows. So we didn't start the fire. I guess it would
But
be more show who started the fire. And I guess this is probably
mm,
like my favorite part. And I guess like, Rhaenys has become my favorite character only
mm,
because she's the only one who has any damn sense. And again, we all know how this is going to end. I haven't read the damn books, but obviously, I saw Game of Thrones, so I know how this ends.
Hmm.
So this idea that you're having calmer heads are going to prevail or whatever, it's all going to be moot and for naught. So as the battle of the burning meals gets to both houses, Team Green and Team Black, Rhaenys counsels Rhaenyra, like, hey,
Yes.
I don't know when this shit started, and I don't, this is terrible. I know Otto Hightower would have never allowed this crap to happen. But, when did this start? Like you're saying this war is coming. When did it start? And I'm going it backwards from the way they did it. She did it forwards and then backwards. But like from when, Damon got his or Aemon got his eye taken out, or did it happen, up to the point, where, Jace got killed by this freaking thing, or when the
Yes,
baby's head
Luke.
got chopped off.
Yes,
Luke,
yes,
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, she's like, it, all these people are going to be fighting. They're not even going to know why they're fighting at a point. It just becomes blood sport. And she's trying to counsel her on that. And again, her brother, right? Viserys, the
no, yeah,
conciliator.
her. Okay,
Right.
no, Jaehaerys is the king before Viserys became king. That's her grandfather,
Okay.
Rhaenys' grandfather, Rhaenyra's
Well,
great grandfather.
Rhaenyra's father is the conciliator. He ruled for a bunch of time because he didn't enter into these ridiculous conflicts, and everybody's pushing for war. But so yeah, it's not going to end. You're going to need to end it. I know you got Rhaenyra said she got a raven from Alicent, back in the day, but she hadn't read it yet. And hopefully, like, you need to talk to Alicent. That's the only way, to stop the war before it begins. What about this book accurate?
Hell no.
Okay.
Rhaenys is the most book arguably aside from Alicent, the most book inaccurate character in the damn show.
Mm,
Um, yeah, the book Rhaenys would have not hesitated to burn all those bitches at the end of episode 9. She would
no.
have burned
Okay.
them. She was very steadfastly Rhaenyra. She was very battle heavy, very battle strong, a dragon rider to her core, 100%.
Mhm.
But I
Okay.
think arguably one of my like favorites before this was, it may just be because he's one of my favorite characters, was like when they're burying the Cargill brothers, the Cargill twins,
Mm,
and like Jace is like, she's like, and Rhaenyra's like, I can't fault him for keeping his oath because he was doing his what he believed was his duty, and like you can't fault him for that technically, no. And but Jace is like, okay, but what about those who sent him?
hmm
He,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of how they're portraying Jace. They're essentially making his plot to just be sitting there and looking pretty, which, well,
Mm,
yes, he does look very pretty. It's like he's such a huge part of like he's such a huge part of the book where it's just kind of like he's very politically astute, he's very politically active. He's a great negotiator. He's able to kind of formulate plans. He's battle heavy. He was clearly taught by Daemon a lot of stuff, and it's just like they're kind of making him stand off to the side for no particular reason, and I
yeah.
don't like that.
Okay. I mean, again, I beyond the fact that everybody has the same damn name, it makes it confusing.
Yeah.
You have a huge cast here that it makes it even more confusing. The fact, again, everybody's got the same name or very similar names,
Hmm.
and it makes it kind of difficult to jump onto. But again, I will push back against people that say that, make that complaint that I just did. I mean, Game of Thrones, outside of season one, you better have been paying every inch of attention,
Oh hell yeah.
because there's all these characters as well. They kept it tighter, I think. I think they kept it tighter, but it was not like there wasn't like a whole bunch of characters floating
Yeah, I
around that
will agree
whole
with that. But
or
it's like
even.
you got a sense. Again, that's the problem with the time jumps with this show. You got a sense of their, aside from Daenerys because she was off doing whatever the hell she was doing.
Mm,
You got a kind of a sense of their familiarity. Like Robert Baratheon wasn't even on screen, I think, for like 5 episodes. He dies
mm,
like halfway through the thing, and like you got a sense of his relationship with Ned. You got a sense of his history,
yeah.
despite not having to go back and flash back to it and to monologue it consistently. You
Right.
got a sense of their familiarity. You got a sense of Cersei's history. You got a sense of who she is as a mother, but you also get a sense of her selfishness, her evil nature, her narcissism.
Right.
Like you get the character.
Yeah.
And with the time jump, I think you miss the connections with all of these characters. Despite their family tree being a circle, these people are a family. They
Mhm.
have bonds and connections, and it feels like it feels kind of like the book. It feels like you're just reading about people. You don't really know people,
Right. Okay.
which I don't
So
like either.
so we're really in the sense of like everybody wants to go to war. So except essentially
Rhaenyra, she's hesitating. That's
Rhaenyra, yeah.
that's Jace's problem with her. Is she's hesitating to do it, and I think his point of view comes from it's like they killed my brother. Are you about to let my brother die in vain?
Hmm.
Essentially, I think that's his perspective.
So that's Team Black. Team Green is like, I don't want this job. I don't need this job.
How dare you
Okay.
put his face on my screen?
Yeah. So Sir Kristen with a fresh haircut, which comes later. I just couldn't find a picture of his small council thing.
Yeah, what's with the
Uh,
bowl cut? Not a fan.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's you got a professional job now. You got to dress like a professional.
Cut your
Uh,
damn hair.
yep. So he's the new hand of the king. You know, he's obviously a little concerned about that. He shows up to his first meeting late, and the small council can't go without him. And again, everybody wants war, man. Aegon wants war. Like that's basically it. Is he's clutching the sword or the dagger that becomes so important through this entire series,
Ugh,
in his hand.
so
The story for a different time, but you know, he wants war. And he's like, all right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to ride. And no, Sir Kristen has a plan. He's going to go out trying to gather some of the small kingdoms to their cause and then ride to Harrenhal, not knowing that in a scene here that somebody's already there. And he's like, all right, fine, y'all do that. Then I will ride in support with my dragon. No, you're not doing that either. You're going to stay in the castle, And he's like, I'm braver than all of them, or I'm bolder, or whatever word that he used, but everybody
he's
knows
like,
that
I'm as fearsome as any of them, and they're all just
fearsome.
like, that's
Yeah.
cap, bro.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
All right. And, that's it. Allison, not impressed by this plan. And she even references the Sir Eric and Sir Eric plan. Like, yeah, favors the bold or whatever.
It
Yeah.
did
And
not
how'd that
favor
work
Sir
out?
Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How did that
yeah.
work
She
out for
she
him?
doesn't like him as hand. I don't like him as hand. The
I don't,
Aegon's idea behind it was, I need someone who's a sword first. Like I think the word was steel, but he wanted somebody that has battle experience rather than somebody that doesn't. And kind of the problem with that is someone who has battle experience is first kind of same thing with Daemon. Their first choice is to go shed blood rather than try diplomacy, which Otto was willing to do,
mm-hmm.
which Rhaenyra was willing to do. That was why she kept butting heads with Daemon constantly. But now they have, and then now they have Kristen on the council, and it's just like, yeah, Allison don't like that Kristen. She may like
That,
another one, but not that one.
yeah. And I think too, you know, Aegon also, replaced a bunch of dudes on the King's Guard,
Mm-hmm.
with his buddies who are idiots.
Mm-hmm.
And it's become a kind of a circle jerk or whatever. The people that are there that are giving him advice really aren't the people that should be giving him advice. There's nobody there that could say no to him because he's replaced them all with yes men, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a really big a big problem, which I imagine will become a bigger problem later on.
And I would like to pause you there as we were introduced to, I don't know if it's on the next slide, but we were introduced to another character this episode.
He's coming. The
Okay.
brother, yes, the brother is coming.
Sir
Yeah.
Wayne
So
Hightower.
yeah.
I
All right.
loved
So
him.
we'll get to him. All right. So obviously we're going to wind up having something at Harrenhal here very soon because both forces are marching on. Daemon is already there. All right. What's that? Yeah. But before that, we say bye bye. Bye bye, Rhaena. Goodbye. Bye bye. Bye. And she's going to go as we're getting closer and closer to war. Rhaenyra, recon, yeah, Rhaenyra recognizes like this shit is getting close, very close. They already sent an assassin to the friggin' the house to try to kill me. So I have this young family that I still need to protect to keep the lineage going and all that. So she takes Rhaena and says, "Look, well, basically she says you ain't got no dragon and you're not bonded with one,
Get out of my
so you're
house.
useless basically to this cause. So you need to get
Yeah.
out." Baela, what about Baela? No, 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 she got a dragon. She's good. You just kind of suck, and you need to go with the little kids to the kids' table into the Vale. So gather all the stuff, take these dragon eggs, which obviously become important later on. Take these dragon eggs and
I
take
gotta run about that
Joffrey
too.
and take all these folks and then get
Aegon
the
and
hell out.
Viserys.
Yeah,
Aegon the Younger, because that's
yes.
Rhaenyra's son named Aegon. So in the book, he's referred to as Aegon the Younger. So I'm gonna just call him that for
Mm,
emphasis. And then Little Prince Viserys, who
mm,
is his. Those are her kids by Daemon.
right.
And then they send little Joffrey, which is Laenor Velaryon's, which I'm making in air quotes.
Hmm. Yeah,
And then show Dragonstone is essentially just left with Baela and Jace,
right.
who are technically the future prince and princess of Dragonstone.
Right, because they
But
are
yeah,
bonded together. Right.
they're
Hmm.
betrothed. But that's a huge book change as well, because in the book, again, all of these actually no, Harry Cullet, the actor who plays Jace, said that Jace is 16 canonly in
Hmm.
the show in an interview. That's an age up. Jace, I think, would be 14. Yeah, he'd
Hmm.
be 14 now. Yeah, 14 according to the book. And Baela would have been 13 because Baela's younger than him.
Okay.
So Rhaena was sent to the Vale essentially because she didn't have no dragon.
Yeah, she
Like
sucks.
she doesn't suck. She becomes very important, but she's sent to the Vale, and Baela was supposed to go with her. Daemon wanted her to go with her because he didn't want his daughters anywhere near battle.
Mm.
But
So they send
she
her to the place where her mother died. So, yeah.
no,
Good.
they sent her to the Vale. There was a possibility of them going to Pentos,
Hmm.
but she sent them to the Vale because Lady Jane Eyre pledged support to Rhaenyra
Hmm.
on condition of getting a dragon.
Okay.
So she sent them. And Baela was supposed to go with her, but Baela, who we'll see later in the episode, is essentially like in the book, and you can kind of see it in the show. She is Daemon Jr. She is completely and utterly her father's daughter, and hopefully we see it later on in the show because that's probably my favorite part about her character is the Daemon part of her. It's probably the most entertaining.
Mm.
And so she kind of digs her heels into the ground and says like she didn't want to leave Jace, so that's why she stays in Dragonstone because she technically wouldn't have been dragon riding at this point,
Right.
but they just kind of made it because her dragon would still have been too small.
Yeah, and she's going to come back up here momentarily as she's going to have an important scene. Her and what Moon Dragon, or Moonstone, or
Moon
Moon
Dancer,
Walker,
and also
whatever.
the obviously they sent them. She sent Rhaena with 4 eggs, one
Hmm.
of which will become a dragon relevant in this particular timeline. The other three, which you can guess from the color of them, are
Yeah.
guess who's Danny's.
Yes.
That is a huge freaking book change. Huge,
Yeah.
ginormous, enormous, and it pissed people off. It kind of
Was
made
it
me mad too.
was it not in the book? It's just a literal Easter egg, dragon egg.
It is quite literally a literal Easter egg. Very good. In the book, okay, by another Targaryen also named Rhaena, like in like 2 generations before.
Mm,
There's this dragon called Dreamfire, which is currently ridden by Queen Helena Targaryen. That's her dragon, but you're never going to see her ride that damn dragon.
mm-hmm.
Uh, she had like a clutch of dragon eggs essentially, and when Rhaena, not this Rhaena, the other Rhaena, was essentially traveling around Westeros because she wouldn't go back to King's Landing out of protest of something that I can't remember because it was so dumb. Uh, she stops by like in a certain level of places. She gets to Dragonstone, and then somebody, one of her closer handmaidens, ends up stealing away with 3 dragon eggs and running off to like the places in the kingdoms where Daenerys is eventually in that
Mm,
timeline. So that's where the dragon eggs, or at least it's not confirmed, but that's where the theory comes from because it was 3 eggs that was stolen. So like, oh, 3 random eggs. Oh, Danny.
yeah.
But that was a
Yeah.
big,
I
that's a
mean,
pretty big book change, and people were really mad about it on the internet.
yeah. I mean, they were just trying to. Yeah. I mean, that's a
It's a
Easter
huge
egg.
callback, yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
Okay. All right. So yeah, by Raina again, we're gonna see, and I've talked to Duke about this with you and others as well. At some point, we're gonna see this systematic killing of all the black people on this show because you're not gonna be able to like have them exist. Then once you know what happens with Game of Thrones, where there are no black people, so it's going to at no point in time that's going to come off as good or fun or whatever. It's going to come like, oh shit, that's they had to kill all the black people because there are none of them 176 years later.
I
But
truly have no idea what happens to House Valarian. They're not mentioned by
yeah,
name in memory that I can recall. It's been a hot second since I picked up the original Song of Ice and Fire books. They're not mentioned by name. They may be mentioned in the history by Tyrion or something, but it's not like I have no idea what happens to them. Apparently, George R. R. Martin's writing a second book to the book that House of the Dragon is based off of. To that, I say, finish the freaking A Song of Ice and Fire first,
Yeah, good luck with that.
please. Yeah, I'm gonna die before I get that book.
Yeah, so we finally catch up with Damon. Yeah, nice hassle, nigga. So he rolls up into Harrenhal, and it's a hot mess. Well, not a hot mess; it's a wet mess of just
Yeah,
absolutely, completely dilapidated, tore down like castle. And he meets zero resistance. He pops in on the Lord of the Manor at the time. He's like, "I'm taking
I'm
over."
taking Harrenhal, and he's like,
Yeah, he's like, all right.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
He's like,
sure.
say you swear.
Yeah, okay, sure, whatever, like whatever. Yeah, you can have a seat, eat something. I'm not gonna die eating your peas. I'm like, man, peas are bad, but I'm not trying to kill you. Like, you're welcome here. Like, this is fine. Like, what are you? Like, we're good. Like, we have no resistance upon this. And so they pledge to Queen Rhaenyra, and then Daemon insists on being called Your Grace. So obviously, we're setting up this part that he still feels again, which was the root of the argument that he had with his wife niece in the previous episode, that he feels that he should be king and he should be
The
making the
husband.
decisions. Yeah, he's not the queen's consort. I should be king, and I'm going to be making decisions based on the fact of that. So yeah, and again, Harrenhal is in disrepair because of
What? Oh, okay. So, back in the original Aegon's conquest, when Aegon the First came to the Seven Kingdoms with his two sister wives and started conquering stuff, there was this dude called Harren the Black,
mm,
who was the original Lord of Harrenhal. Who I forget why they were beefing so hard, but they were beefing. And he did. I think it was because he didn't want to bend the knee to Aegon's rule because he was
mm,
uniting all of the Seven Kingdoms, even though it was technically six, because Dorne was not fucking with the Targaryens essentially. So, in retribution for not bending the knee, Aegon the First decides to just burn the hell out of his castle, and that's
mm,
that. Like 100 years later, it's still in disrepair. And then in season one, you see Larys Strong, the clubfoot one that likes
mm.
feet, ironically.
Dr. Feet.
Yes,
Yeah,
Doctor Feet. Kind of come in and he kills his father. I mean, his
and his
father,
brother,
Sir Lionel Strong, and his
his
brother,
brother,
who
right?
was Jace's daddy.
Mm,
Um, in the fire. So I'm assuming that has something to do with why it's still in disrepair, that fire, but a big part of it's because he essentially took a dragon and said Dracarys and burned like three-fourths of a huge ass castle.
okay.
That's why it's all broken.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, Damon's going to come back later, and it'll be one of these Lady Dragonstone explains what's happening situation, because I
Mm-hmm.
left off the mysterious lady that he encounters here because of where it's going to come back later. Um, but yeah, I mean, again, like if you're a fan of Damon, you're not getting a whole lot of him like the first three episodes, at least not as the focus. He's been doing kind of side missions essentially,
Yeah, he
and
does side missions. That's kind of how he operates now in the book. He separates for Rhaenyra for a really, 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 really long time. Well,
okay.
not a really long time, but they in the course because again, the Dance of the Dragons essentially takes place over 2 years, a
Mm,
little bit less. So it starts suddenly and it ends very, very quickly. And
oh,
how it ends, I won't say obviously, but it ends quickly. So they don't see a lot of each other, and he's gonna be doing his thing in Harrenhal. But yeah, I don't
okay.
have a lot to say about this, mostly just because it's like the king consort thing kind of did bother me. It was giving me flashbacks to the freaking Crown because that's the same actor that plays Prince Philip. That's Matt Smith.
No,
So
okay.
he's just like, oh yeah, I'm here. Yeah, you call me king consort.
Yeah,
That was a weird one.
nice. Yay! Meet my brother, who we've never met, or even I'm sure they referenced him at some point. We just
They
missed it.
did. Yeah, it's in the first episode of the damn show.
Yeah, exactly. So as Sir Kristen and his armies are, headed off to the march, on their way to Harrenhal to gather kingdoms, Allison's like, "Hey, my brother is going to join your crew." Like, no, we're good. Like, no, he's coming. Yep, and he's kind of a dick. Sir Sir Gawain.
Sir Gawain
Uh,
Hightower.
yeah, he's joins the group, and he instead of insisting that he stay behind, Sir Kristen says, give me your booby cloth. That's it. I want my little booby note or whatever handkerchief,
No,
and
I,
that's it.
yeah, it's a handkerchief. It's a kerchief technically, but yeah, it's a
Mhm.
handkerchief. And Gawain caught it, and he was side eyeing his sister, and I adored that.
Right.
He's a Sir Gawain Hightower. doesn't have much of a personality that we know of in the books. He's there. He's not like really important. I believe this is Freddie Fox is the actor who's portraying him. Um, I don't know. It's kind of odd. I feel like they're gonna make him a little bit more important than he actually is.
Right.
But
And then this,
but he hated Sir Kristen the second he saw him, so he's good in my book for now.
well, yeah, and he's going to, you know, as we get to the scene where we do get back to Bela, he's the one that actually, not kind of puts them, exposes them, it makes them put them on the run, but not really. But yeah, we'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, so another character introduced that we've never seen before. That's fine too, but just another character here. And again, pacing, pacing, pacing. Episode 3 out of 8, get a brand new character. All right, you're telling us
I
he's
don't
going to
think
be
he's
important.
gonna last long, to be perfectly
Yeah,
honest with you.
noted. Okay. War. Ugh. Good God, y'all. What is it good for? All right, so I'm going to go on a slight political rant here after I explain what happens in this thing. So
Lord
Queen
only knows.
Rhaenyra, realizes her small council, they want war, man. That's it. Like, that's it. And and the only one pushing to be like, look, don't do this is Rhaenys. There's the only one, but the rest of the council flat out wants war, much like it is with Team Green as well, except they have, more willing people that want to engage in that war, with Aegon being the head of that particular group. So
Mm.
here's the thing: war, what is it good for? Nothing, except making people rich and powerful. And so here's the thing. So when there's a war or a country is at war, it makes people, one, it ramps up your jingoism. So, you behind your team, whether it's team green, team black, or team red, white, and blue. And then two, it really makes, like, for the rich and powerful people, it makes it easier to rule people, because nobody wants to go against your team, country, or whatever, because you don't want to look like as a traitor. So you will accept things that you would probably find a little bit deplorable in regular circumstances, because it's a part of the war effort. And then the only people that really ever benefit from war are the people that are pushing it, whether it be the military
Mm.
people, the contractors, or whatever. It's the same thing here, though, because who's going to suffer? The rednecks, the blackwoods, the whatever, the brackens, those people are going to be the ones fighting on there, like Rhaney said, for a cause that they don't even can really know what this is about, honestly, at a point, and it'll become less and less obvious about what they're fighting for. Whereas the people, the favored people, the lords and whatever, they will get a chance to sit in their castles, essentially above the fray, until it literally comes to their doorstep to have to do something about it.
Yeah.
And so this is where we are here too. Like, this is what it is. What is it good for? And Rainey's is like, this is not going to work out. Nothing good can come from this, and it needs to be figured out. And got to the point so much where they were like, hey, you know what? We'll just do the war. You just go and hang out in Pentos or go to the Vale with everybody else. But she shuts down completely at that point. She's like, you're being a traitor if you try to do that and go to war behind my back. So yeah, you know, there are certain shows that delve into modern politics without telling you that they're delving into modern politics. The things that are going on, obviously, this is a British production. The things going on in Britain, mirror kind of a little bit what's happening in the United States, not fully, but this is kind of the battle that's really being fought more on a cultural war now, as opposed to a physical war. But it is definitely very prevalent here, and just like it's being mirrored in this country now. So that's my political rant. But for this scene or whatever, we're just moving this on, trying to get us set up to our last scene, which we'll talk about when we get there. Anything else on this I missed?
Yeah, the modern part of it I agree with as well. But what Rainey said at the beginning, it's like, what necessarily are we fighting for?
Yeah.
And that is the question that I have kind of been asking myself. Like, if Rhaenyra was fighting for the crown, if she wanted to do diplomatic matters when it came to the crown of the Seven Kingdoms, we saw that at the beginning, not the beginning, at the end of season one, where Otto came with his terms and she was willing to consider them, whereas Daemon was ready to chop people's heads off.
Mm-hmm.
And she would have been willing to consider those terms. In the book, she was willing to consider the terms of her enemy and end the war for a hot second there.
Yeah.
Her mind changed when Aemon killed her son.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Right.
war became less about getting the crown and more about avenging those who killed her child. And then when Aegon's son dies, it becomes the exact same thing for them. So it's they're not fighting for a crown, they're fighting for the justice of their family. That's
Right.
what I would get at.
Yeah. It's
But
personal.
it kind of, it's a person, it's personal. It's not literally about a crown. If it was
Yeah.
about a crown, it would have likely been solved through a matter of diplomacy a little bit more.
Right. We're not care about the kingdom. The idea of we care about what happens to the realm is completely thrown out the window at this point.
And then when you bring someone's like child into it, it becomes a completely different. Like, that's why I keep saying that's why I think Jace and Bela are kind of in mentality. You just kind of see them just exchanging looks across the scenes.
Mm.
It's just kind of like, I mean, Luke, that was their family, that was their brother. It was Rhaenyra's son, and it's like she's hesitating to go to war over Aemon, who literally over somebody that killed her kid. Whereas Aegon, someone killed his kid, and he's ready to go
Yeah.
and destroy everything.
Go ride on dragons
It,
themselves to burn everything down.
it,
Right.
it makes, I think the idea of is like you don't want to let him die in vain, because in the book that's why she goes to war. It's because he killed Luke. That is
Right.
completely the reason.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's move on. Uh,
Who's
yes.
the
The only
worst?
king worse than you is Burger King. All right. This was my last slide. That was the previous show. Sorry about that. Hold on.
What's this?
All right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
What was that?
So yeah. So two quick stops in the Red Keep. I'm sorry. Yeah. So Helena speaks with her mom. Because I think that gets lost so much that this gets lost. Like, yeah, that's her mother. Also, I mean, she's the father, and yeah, it just gets lost in the fact of the incest there. So and she's like, the reason I didn't want to do that funeral wasn't because I was embarrassed or shamed or whatever. I was like, I just, you know, other people lose kids too, especially the common folk. I'm sure it happens to them a lot. So I didn't really feel like I was any better than them. I was like, man, Helena's the only one of these people that got any damn sense. You know,
Ironically,
ironically. So yeah, so there
never
was
lose
that,
him.
and then King Aegon, he's getting gassed up by his buddies or whatever, and getting into his riding materials. He's still wanting to ride out, and then it's actually Dr. Foot that actually talks him out of it. He's like, man, if you leave, they're gonna take your freaking kingdom, like your mother and your brother. They're gonna take that if you don't freaking die, essentially in battle as well. So he convinces him actually to stay, and then he rewards him with being the master of whispers, which his father never had because he didn't feel that he needed that. So yeah, just a real quick stop there between these two scenes. And again, it's so alluded to in the first part when Sir Kristen comes to that meeting
Mm-hmm.
where he sees like Aegon's buddies are like in the King's Guard now. It really becomes apparent here. One, because they show them. Two, is just like, hey, yeah, we're about to take out the new squire, to get him laid or whatever. And oh yeah, your vows to chastity. Like, of course you're Grace. Joking around, and King Aegon like literally took it seriously. Like, what?
But then
Like,
we find out he was actually joking.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
So just a whole mess. And again, surround yourself by yes men. You never have to, nobody will ever question your decisions, which is essentially what he's doing. And that's always a recipe for disaster. If nobody can tell you no, only bad things will eventually happen. Did I
This
miss
is
anything here?
you missed the Helena saying she forgives Allison.
Yeah,
But what for?
yeah. But see, we were talking about this off mic or whatever. That I thought it was, she was forgiving her for making her do the funeral. I didn't think it was forgiving her for her bedroom Olympics with Sir
I
Chris.
think it. I think it was a little bit of both. I also Laris is little fingering, and I actually kind of like that because despite my loathing of that character of Littlefinger as a person, he played the game so freaking well,
Mm-hmm.
and I adore. You can be evil as hell, but if you're calculating, I'll still admire you a little bit.
No, that's fair. Yeah,
And
I just.
he is Littlefinger. He had that conversation with Aegon in at episode 1. He's like, you don't want to be pliant, but then he's
Mm,
making him pliant on him because he's telling him what he wants to hear. He's manipulating him. He is great at
of
manipulating.
course. Oh no, and well, and Littlefinger did that with everybody too, to get what he wanted. And I think, look, I mean, it's just it doesn't it makes the appearance or sometimes the appearance because Laris is disabled
He
that
seems
people,
forbearing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, people are taking don't take him as seriously as they could or should. And that's really, it's just, it's like Tyrion. People didn't take him seriously because of the dwarfism or whatever, but he was one of the smartest people. Laris is probably a little bit that way too. People only look at him because of his disability and understand how smart and conniving that he is. All
I
right.
I think there's also a great deal of there's a great deal I think of that scene. There's some foreshadowing. For this episode, yes, you see Egon kind of turning around, staring in the mirror. His relationship with Laris, I would say, keep an eye on that for future seasons.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way they have not really done a lot of foreshadowing with Team Black yet of
Mm-hmm.
like how said characters meet said fates. And like, I mean, I can't talk about it, but if anyone is actually like if you're like one of those freaks that's like thoroughly seen Game of Thrones, I don't mean like the one watch and then you're done because the eighth season made you hate your life. I mean like you've gone back and you've rewatched it and the whatever. Like you know how this ends because they freaking talk about it there. They
Right.
talk about it like at least twice.
Hmm.
So it's like you know what happens to them. I know what happens to them because of the book, but they don't really do that for Team Black. But they've done it a lot for how the characters like their future stories and how their stories end for Team Green, and I think that is brilliant. That is the one thing I like about this stupid episode.
Mm. All right. So a guy walks into a bar. Um,
Oh, do you
I
want to? Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is one of your where you get it. You're gonna
Oh,
get a chance to
okay.
explain something. But a guy walks into a bar, and I said, "I'm gonna turn it over to Lady Dragonstone." But before I do that, let's go through the rest of this. So that as this guy he explains his life story, Aemon walks in with his king guard and the squire. As they make their way through the tavern. Hey, drinks on for me on the kingdom, hurrah! And as they make their way through, and they wind up at the brothel. I think the required brothel scene a week here, and well, I'll leave that part off, Mike. But
Yeah, but
a little bit more
I don't
graphic
know what
than
it is. If
yeah, a
you,
little bit
yeah,
yeah, a little bit more graphic than normal, I guess. Normal is such a loaded word, but whatever. Like, so there's that, and then the king rolls up and he winds up, finding Nakemon, as we
make a
called
month.
him last week, and he's with the same lady that he's been with. We find out that's the only lady he's ever been with. He goes there to, essentially get coddled and cuddled, amongst other things, I would assume. And she's probably, a little bit of his, Amon whisperer to kind of, keeping whatever version of sanity that he has.
Yeah,
And
what can it?
yeah, and then Aegon makes fun of him about all those things, and like, oh my God, it's the only person you've ever been with. You're still laying with her. Oh my
And you
God, she's
see it
so
on his
old.
freaking
Yeah,
face, man.
yeah, and
You
a
feel
great
like as like
version of
it just
acting.
turns into whatever.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
the fact that he held his composure was definitely frightening to me because like those two, it is so clear to me that those two hate each other, man. He
Yeah.
does not like Egon. He clearly thinks he is more suited to the crown, and in fairness, he is.
Hmm.
But he does not like his brother. And
Yeah.
Aegon, I mean, if you go back to the scenes, everyone's always like, "Oh, Luke and Jace bullied him. Luke and Jace did this. Luke and Jace did that."
Yeah,
It's
his
literally,
brother was worse. Yeah.
yeah, his brother was the ringleader of everything. His brother was the one that encouraged it and allowed it. He was the older one, so Jace and Luke wanted to follow the example of their uncle. Like he was the one that headed it, and he's back here bullying him again.
Yeah, in a different wrestling term, this would be a face turn. Like, Eamon would definitely wind up becoming a baby face and the good guy here. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen.
No,
But, it's definitely, enough to him to be like, you know what, I'm gonna turn on my brother at some point in time, and however that ends is however it ends. But all right. So the guy walks into the bar, his name is Ulf. Explain you only get 2 minutes to explain who Ulf
God
is,
damn.
because I know you could go forever.
I
Go.
think Ulf explained who he was.
But it made no sense to a regular ass person watching this show.
Okay, so Ulf is the same thing as Hugh Hammer and the same thing as Adam and Alan Velaryon. He is half Targaryen, or at least he is claiming to be. He's trying to explain it to his friends. Like,
Hmm.
hey, yeah, I'm half Targaryen, I'm this, I'm that. He is a future of what I referred to on the last project, a future dragon seed that worked with Rhaenyra.
Okay.
But you see how little his loyalty is to her when like Aegon comes in. He's like, the true
All
heir
hail
is
the king.
Princess Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Keep that
Hmm.
in mind when dealing with Ulf.
Okay.
They say he is the bastard son of Prince Balon Targaryen, who is
Mm,
Daemon and Viserys's King Viserys, Rhaenyra's dad's dad. So it's Daemon's dad.
mm,
So his half brothers are Daemon and Viserys. That's a huge book change. I've never seen the particular community of this book actually be so mad about something. The Dreamfire thing was a whole just that was just the freaking oh my god, yeah, they were pissed about this because
mm,
in the book Balon is married to his sister Alyssa, Targaryens, and they have a very very loving marriage. They're very loyal to each other. They literally never cheated on each other ever. So,
mm.
but in the book, Ulf's parentage, his Targaryen parentage, we have no idea who it is. We just know he's Targaryen because of his hair.
Okay. All right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Aemon's had his little villain moment. But I
Okay.
also would like to draw a freaking thing. They had the maid that Aegon freaking raped in the first season there, getting freaking her ass slapped and assaulted by other people. That made me
Oh,
angry. I was
jeez.
like, oh,
Yeah.
somebody get her a gun, get her a
Yeah.
dragon, please.
Mm, yeah. They also this scene also did the random black guy in Game of Thrones or this
Yeah.
show thing where Ulf comes in and like one of the dudes, essentially the only dude I could see in the whole tavern is
Ironic.
black, and I was just like, this is weird. It's just again, coming from an older black person that watched Game of Thrones, who is the brother of somebody who has been into medieval fantasy stuff as a black person for a very long time, which would be Big Hutch. At no point in time has he ever been like, you know what this show needs is more black people. This show is fine. Like it was fine. Like oh, there was. I know people like oh, there's no black people in it. I'm not gonna watch it. That's on you. Okay, it's not like there's not plenty of opportunities to have diversity and inclusion in particular shows. It should have been happening in the Game of Thrones show too. Like I understand that, I understand. But now it's just like, hey, there's a black guy here. There's freaking a black guy in the King's Guard. It's it's oftentimes unnecessary, and it reeks of tokenism. Like that's not what people wanted. That's not what black people want. They want the characters to be relevant or whatever. Like Corliss, that's a relevant character. Like has a yeah, he has an important role in this particular show plot and fantasy or whatever. Like that's an important character. Just throwing random black guy number two at the tavern or whatever. It's just whatever. Anyway, all right. I know that who I think it is. So, as we had talked about Prince or what Sir Kristen and his crew on their little trip, to gather up small kingdoms or whatever and head to Harrenhal, they wind up at what's his name? Gwalin? What?
Gawain.
Gawain. So
Think
silly.
Bruce Wayne, but with a G.
Okay. Well, Gawain was like, he's like, hey, we should stop off at, at a local pub or perhaps that's what I'm saying. He kind of like led to this because they stopped marching to have this conversation about where they were gonna, shack up essentially for the
Mm,
night. And
that,
he wants to go
that
to the
girl cat.
pub. And, yeah, wants to go to the pub, the tavern, meet girls and stuff. And they're just sitting out there. And then Sir Kristen, being, probably the most experienced and one of the most experienced people
He's
that is
most
right.
certainly very astute.
Yeah, he's like, hey, no, we're exposed. And we cut to the sky, and then we see Bela, on her patrol that she was sent out to it by Queen Rhaenyra in episode 1 or 2. I don't remember now. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, hey, and she's like, hey, wait a second. And then she starts to bring the dragon down. And it's like, to the trees, run, run. Oh my God, run. And there's this big like race to them getting to the trees and to the dragon seeing them, but she sees them. And she goes back and reports to the council, like, yo, I just seen them dudes. They're riding into the woods. Like, yo, that's a problem. And again, the council, war. We want war. Let's go get dragons. Let's burn everything down, which is what they want. Which is what Rhaenys has been trying to tell her. Like nobody's going to win if this happens. And this is finally the prompt for her to be like, you know what? Let me go read that damn raven that was sent by Alicent. Renee backing up Rhaenys words. Like maybe the only way I can stop this war is to actually get with Alicent and be like, look, maybe we can stop it before it begins. So all right, there's that. And then the other part I know that's not who I think it is. Damon has a vision of the woman that he saw, and he has a dream about her who essentially tells him, you're going to die here. Who is this lady, and why is this important? You got 2 minutes.
There's so much I can't say.
That's even better.
Ugh, that is Lady Alice Rivers. She, you know how Jon Snow was called Jon Snow, and Ramsay before Ramsay was a Bolton, he was called Ramsay Snow because he's a bastard. They
Hmm.
all every region of Westeros has like a bastard name that's assigned to them, and for
Okay.
Riverlands, it's rivers.
Okay.
Like Martell, it would be sand or whatever
Hmm.
in Dorne. So she is the bastard daughter or sister of somebody we don't know. She's either the bastard daughter of Sir Simon Strong, which means she would be the half sister to Harwin and Larys,
Hmm.
or whatever. I have no idea what she is because it doesn't tell me. What I do know that she is she's a freaking witch.
I was
She's
gonna
a
say it's
literal
giving Red
witch.
Witch. Yeah, I was say it was giving Red Witch
She's not Red
and
Witch because she's not trained by the people that what the hell's her name again? God, I
Cassandra. Yeah, I
don't
know.
remember. It's because there's Missandra, and then there's Danny's handmaiden, which is
Yeah.
Missandei, which is two different people.
Yeah.
And but she's a freaking witch. She haunts Harrenhal. She was like a wet nurse or whatever. She's in her 40s,
Mm-hmm.
but apparently she's hot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's yeah, that. But she's a foreseer. She can see into the future. She's casting spells. That's why Daemon had a vision of yes, because that was who we thought it was. They had Millie Alloc return
Yeah.
as young Rhaenyra, and she was freaking sewing the baby's head back on. The
Yeah.
baby
Freaky.
that he's responsible, well, not responsible, well, kind of responsible for killing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh yeah, that was great. That had to be my favorite moment of this episode was Millie Alloc coming back. She did a great job with Rhaenyra, and she's definitely a fan favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, she's like the visions and the this and the that, and he ended up out by the werewood tree where Bran is watching this from
Mm-hmm.
the not the Iron Throne because they burned it, but yeah, but the oh yeah, you will die in this place. She sees the future. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It was giving a little Red Witch, and the callback was great to have her back in it. She did lie and say she was not going to be in any flashbacks, so you can't believe anything these people say in these interviews. I mean, because and rightfully so, because people will spoil it and whatever. But yeah,
I want to I want to like back to my girl Bayla because she was kicking ass. Bayla Targaryen's one of my favorites. The fact that they
mhm,
made her black kind of makes me like her more.
mhm,
But she yeah, what she should have done, what she was supposed to do was to be like, oh yeah, I see Kristen Cole. Like it's the Rhaenyra's lines. Like, are you sure it was Kristen from like how high up you were? She's like, I wasn't up that high. And she's
mhm.
like, what?
Yeah,
And you told me not to engage, so I didn't. I just didn't burn them. I chased them for a little bit, but I didn't burn their asses. That was
yeah,
definitely that's a Daemon Targaryen moment. That is a you get a very good glimpse of her character here. And it's like
nice.
well, like yes, the men around the painted table are trying to get her to stumble the realm into the war, and she's hesitant. It's like you, it, her inability to put up effective defensive measures is gonna become a problem. The enemy has like Daemon said it at the beginning of season. Sorry, at the end of episode one. Yeah, of season one. Like the enemy has declared war. What are you going to do about it? Then he was talking about them taking the crown.
Hmm.
That could have been different, but they're actively sending men after you. You need to do something, and it's
So
her inability. She doesn't have to go send dragons to burn people yet, but she needs to do something.
right. Well, her thought is just like her father's thought, and we're not. Let's 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 try to make peace with Alicent. And so I know you get into this idea of a show about dragons, but this idea that Rhaenyra the Cruel could put on one little outfit and sneak all the way into the freaking to the Red Keep like that seems a little bit of a stretch, but I understand. I really really do. So let's sneak into the
Was
sept.
wearing Anna Waddington's outfit, and she was like,
Yeah, that's right.
I saw that on her Instagram.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, she should have came in with the bells for Alicent and started saying shame.
Well, we get to go back to a part that I did skip over, and purposely that with the White Witch, White
Worm,
Rabbit,
worm.
whatever, worm, whatever. She, after she gets made a part of the king's like court or the queen's court, essentially for saving her life from the Eric attack, and she's gonna use her you know secrets in the Red Keep or whatever to like find out like well she's only alone when she goes to the Sept, and this happens this time. So they hatch this harebrained plan to sneak in there undetected, which okay, that's fine. And she gets in there while she's in there lighting her candles, and
Her
they
freaking
have this conversation about this, and blah 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 blah. Honestly, if the one is like, well, all right, well, you quit. No, you quit. Well, like, it really boils down to like, look, no, you
Miss
misheard
Harris
this.
said it. Yeah.
Yes, you misheard this conversation. He was telling the story of Ice and Fire or whatever about Aegon the
Oh, the
Conqueror.
Conqueror.
Yeah, not
Can
your
we just
son.
talk about for a second how we're essentially about to go into a war because the Targaryens only use 5 freaking names?
Yeah, yeah, you might want to flip that around a little bit. Yeah, it's insane, and it's just like okay, and the audacity of Rhaenyra to be like, oh, what? That was just a miscommunication. You know what? Just stop this shit. And then the freaking audacity of the other one to be like, not even to
Yeah,
hear
he
or
didn't make a
understand
mistake.
it.
He did not make a
Yeah,
mistake.
exactly. I'm like,
Oh, sweet
like
lord.
both of them white women and very strong here. And I'm like, I mean, this could easily, not easily, but it could have at least come to some version of a conclusion that didn't end where it did. And then, in the unbelievable part or whatever, like, the queen is there. Send the king's guard. She let her leave. Send the king's guard. Attack her. Like, string her up with freaking, rat and cheese or whoever. Like, you end the show on episode 3 and we're good. We're not even watching it for the rest of the time. I
Mhm.
understand this. She's protected by plot armor here, but come on, dude. But then I hear it's not plot armor because this shit's not in the book.
Oh yeah, hell no. Their whole relationship and friendship isn't even in the goddamn book. That's
Okay.
not a thing. Um, when I this is what pissed me off about this episode because of the this started the war, this started the war. This was the discourse on the internet because we've had this freaking conversation before. We've been having it for 4 episodes. The last episode of season 1 and these 3 episodes now. We've been having this conversation about her going to war. What was the big? I mean, freaking Emma Darcy got nominated for like I think a Golden Globe and an Emmy for
Mm,
that scene at the end of episode 10 of season 1 where Rhaenyra turns around facing the thing after Daemon tells her about Luke. Emma Darcy, they got nominated for that.
mm,
Like why what was the point of that pivotal scene? Very well acted, very well written, and incredibly directed because apparently Matt Smith directed it and not somebody else.
mm,
What was the point of that scene if we're going to have her continuously hesitating on the fact that she wants to continue? What was
mm.
the point of it?
Right.
That made me mad. That's just terrible writing.
Mm,
That's something that has to come from the writer's room.
right.
And that the whole again, this brings back to the thing is like y'all don't want to make nobody a villain, and that bothers the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Everyone, because like you got people like you have again because there are team greeners, there are insane team greeners, and they're team green because of freaking Allison.
Yeah.
And like I don't understand how y'all. I can understand how you can defend a young Allison who was forced to marry an old man and bear children as a teenager by her own daddy.
Mm-hmm.
But older Allison, like after
No.
time of Allison, that was making Rhaenyra walk up all of those stairs, literally dripping blood after giving birth to see a baby.
Yeah.
Y'all can defend that? No, you can't.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean Team Green is clearly the bad people here, but yeah, I understand what you're saying, and
Yeah.
you're right. There's nobody that's the bad guy. It's just a bunch of again wrestling term, a bunch of cool heels, man. Like that doesn't work. You can't have that. Like you people, these things work when you have somebody to cheer
And
for or against, and we don't have either of those.
you cheer for who you cheer for. It's just again media literacy is in the toilet, and these people don't understand how the Greens are wrong. But I think the also part of the scene was like why we can't stop it now. Like you have the debate about like, oh, you're gonna kill like women and children. It's like, yeah, hey, you killed my hey, your son killed my son. Oh well, you killed my grandson. I didn't have nothing to do with that. And
Yeah,
she didn't. She didn't have anything to do with that.
correct.
Literally nothing.
But she's not. She didn't believe it then when it was said either. I mean, she kind of played it
She,
across
but,
her.
she, but she knew Rhaenyra didn't say it because the freaking guy when it was interrogated said it. They're just saying that because they need other people to believe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, hey, you killed my son. It's it's like she's like saying, oh, he named Aegon, and you have like this moment where she's like doubting it. She's like, did my son just die for nothing?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you have it. It's like the prince that was promised. What?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
amazing. I, Rebecca, can we talk about how Jon Snow's starting problems and he doesn't even exist yet?
Yeah.
Can't even
Right. Well, and I think again that is plot armor, but also like they're both in the wrong here, and I think that plays to what you're saying. Is like, well, we don't want anybody. We want people to choose sides or whatever. We're gonna like kind of play
Yeah,
it down by the middle, and I think that's the point.
our Martin's idea, he says this all the time, George R. R. Martin says it all the time, like, you were supposed to be equally split between Team Black and Team Green. The
Mm,
problem is, when he wrote the book, everyone was Team Black except men for the most part.
right.
And again, this fandom has a very large female part of it now. As like time has gone by, and in hindsight, the criticisms of the show have been made, and the criticisms of the book have been made. Like the female fan base has been definitely grown. So it's like so a large part of it is women. So you have a lot of people rooting for Team Black, but then you make the person the head of Team Green rather than make it the paternal figure, which would have been Egon. You
Hmm.
make it a matriarch and you make it Alicent.
Right.
That makes it different. Different.
Yeah.
It was. It's supposed to be. Ryan Condal always says it's like these two were friends, but they got divided into this thing of patriarch because of the patriarchy. You can see that in the show. It's very clear.
Mm,
The idea in the book is like, oh yeah, this family got divided over patriarchy because one of them wanted power and the other one was willing, and Viserys wanted Rhaenyra to be queen.
mm,
And I don't know, I always kind of felt like Rhaenyra didn't really care about that damn chair.
yeah.
Like, it's not like Aegon cares about it either. She cares more than Aegon, but the bar is the floor at this particular point. Like,
Well,
she left on Dragonstone. She was living in Dragonstone. Like, in the book, she was there at the council. She was almost named Hand of the King, but Alicent had to stop it. Like, she is politically astute, and her sons are politically astute. And it's like we're missing a large, just kind of chunk of that. Again, it's filler. It's bad filler. It doesn't exist in the books. I mean, and there would have been a literal better time to do this, which according to Reddit, and apparently from the Reddit thing I've been reading, HBO, you need to start checking whoever the hell you're letting on your sets because they're leaking stuff that's actually
mhm,
happening.
mhm, okay.
Just to let you know if you're listening to this,
Yeah.
like
So
they're just there would have been another moment for them to have this conversation, and we've been having the same conversation, which is why I don't like. She's like, okay, now that I know my daddy named me heir to the throne for sure, I'm gonna go to war. Your son is at the bottom of the ocean.
right.
Let's start killing people, please.
Wow. Like I said, we recording, a little bit earlier than we did last time, right before this show
2 hours before
premiering
episode
tonight.
4.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it's supposed to be a long episode for episode 4 here tonight. And
Entitled "The Dance of the Dragons," which is what the chapter in the book is called.
mhm,
Yeah, the line I believe is, and then the storm broke and the dragons danced.
mhm,
But I know what's happening in this episode, not because of Reddit, just because of the book, and then the leaks from when they were shooting it.
mhm,
But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a huge jump in pace. You have like this slow build up, and then it's gonna be like you have like a plot
rush to
diagram. It's
the
like
end.
flat, it's going up to the climax, but
Mm,
then it's literally just going to be boom, yeah. It's gonna move very very quickly from what I can understand because this was a filler episode, and this was just bad filler
yeah.
because it should have already been established. This conversation between them never should have been happening, and the misunderstanding of wanting Aegon on the throne, in my opinion, if someone mentions the freaking prophecy of Azor Azai,
Mhm,
it's something in stupid Valyrian in the books that I can never
yeah.
pronounce correctly. If
What
someone
ace on
mentions
high.
if someone mentions that prophecy to me one more time, I'm gonna freaking lose it.
Right.
Like
And again,
it's not needed there. It's just a useless tie-in to Game of Thrones. It's a useless
yes.
parallel that we didn't
Well,
need.
and
Like
again,
it's a
much
dumb shit
like
to do that.
yeah, when you do prequels, you're always painted into some sort of a corner. You can't really paint outside of it too much because everybody knows how it ends. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're having this great battle with this particular person in it, but I know he lives later on to do something else. So you can't, you're not going to invest fully in it, but a different podcast.
It
So,
doesn't it doesn't make sense. Like it was a useless tie-in to Game of Thrones. Also, the fact that there's a prophecy sitting on that dagger and nobody knows about it in Game of Thrones also
yeah.
makes no freaking sense. Like it, this entire thing could have been avoided if they just made Alicent the kind of scheming bitch that she is, which I wish that they.
Okay. All right. So this is
Hope
gonna wrap our recap of episode 3. We'll
definitely
try to get episode 4 out a little
at a
sooner,
reasonable time.
at a reasonable time, not a full week late. Just a lot of going on this end of the camera or whatever if you're watching on YouTube. So, all right. So as the Game of Thrones music plays us out on the podcast side, you'll be able to find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, no some more Stitcher, y'all, Google Play, wherever you find your podcast. Just put in Brothers Comics. This will pop up as the most recent episode of all the podcasts that we do. And I am the producer, and I'm signing off right at 1 hour. Perfect time. As
Woo!
always, go ahead, Lady Dragonstone, sign off.
Lady Dragonstone is signing off. She is leaving, but I am still seething.
Understood. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit better tonight. We'll see everybody next week. Peace, everybody.
Bye bye.